Okay, here I am walking in the bush, and I wanted to talk in this video about the idea that things change so quickly. And this is one of those things that always amazes me. It's like, again, I have a lot of references to Seinfeld because I love Seinfeld so much. There's an episode where George Costanza says, he goes, "God will never let me be successful." And I thought that was so true. And they go, "You don't believe in God?" Like Elaine and Jared are saying, "You don't believe in God." And he goes, "I do for the bad things." And it's so true, isn't it? Sometimes we don't believe good things can happen to us. But we also acknowledge that, hang on, there must be some kind of force that is governing this sort of thing if we believe that much. So it's kind of like we sometimes, because you look at it both ways. You could say, well, that means that if it's all up to me, then I could do anything. But we sometimes feel like we're being cursed a bit. I know I've felt like that a lot in my life, where I feel like some things in my life just don't change. And this is my curse. There's that line out of Psycho, if anybody's old enough to remember the film Psycho, where Anthony Perkins says, he goes, "I think we're all in our little private traps." He says that to the lady that he ends up murdering. He says, "I think we're all in our private traps, and none of us can ever get out. We scratch and claw at each other, but only at the surface. We never actually take the time to actually go deeper." And one of the things I wanted to say is that I have noticed this in my life, that things change so quick. You can literally have a thought, and then 2 seconds later, that thought is eventuating into your life. And with the training I've had in hypnotherapy and that sort of thing, I'm always interested in how, once you have an idea, the way that takes shape in your body can be super quick. I've seen people in front of me who have had remarkable changes just instantaneously, and it's literally like a decision, or an amount of thoughts in the brain passing through the brain is going to end up in a decision, or you might call it habitual thinking. But at the same time, if you're allowing those thoughts into your mind, it's basically like a decision. We can't separate, well, I'm going to think it, but I'm not going to believe it. It's very difficult to do that because, at a certain point, you're going to start to believe what you're thinking if you allow those thoughts in there. So we have to, at some point, say, no, I don't want to believe that. And if we've learned things as a kid, then a lot of times they're unconscious, which means we've already decided that they're true, and we don't see them as anything other than true. So, like, for example, if you've got a particular religion you follow, or you have a belief about money or relationships or success or something that you can see reoccurring in your life, a lot of the time it's because we've got those beliefs from our parents or people around us. Maybe your school teacher didn't believe in you or whatever. And I think it's really interesting because I've noticed, as I keep saying, in my life, that things can change so quickly. Literally, what's around us is not really real. We think it's solid, we think it's taken form, but it can change incredibly quickly. So for example, if I give you an idea of, like, if you meet somebody, that you and that person have a relationship. It could be a friendship, it could be romantic, it could be a business relationship, it could be many different things. So when you have this relationship with this person, you're then figuring out, what's your relationship going to be? And I can remember years and years ago, I was at a particularly happy point of my life, and I met this guy, and I was just like, I'm so happy to meet you. I can just remember it. I was just, he was just a guy, but I was just like so excited to meet this guy because he was a real interesting, cool kind of guy, and I was just feeling very happy at that point in my life. Not that I'm not happy now, but I feel like that was a particular moment where I felt really super ecstatic, because it was when I first went to Japan, and it was like everything was new, and I had this very pure, innocent perspective on things. And I remember he didn't even bat an eyelid. He was like, "Oh, Chris, lovely to meet you." And he was British, and he's like, "Hey, Chris, how's it going?" But anyway, we got along really, really well. And then all of a sudden, I remember the point. He and I were we're talking to some of the Japanese ladies there, and there was a girl that I liked, and he ended up sleeping with her. And I remember at the time, something happened to me, and I was just like, oh, this guy's not who I thought he was. Because my other friend, my co-worker, was telling me, oh, he drinks a lot and he doesn't seem like he's a good dude. And my mind just changed, and I really regret doing that because I lost touch with him. But I know, not that we ever fought, but I kind of felt like there was a feeling there that changed between us. He could have been a lifelong friend, but instead I kind of just pushed him away from me subconsciously, because I kind of made a decision about him. I said, oh, he's maybe not that good a person. He drinks a lot, and I was angry because the girl that I liked, he ended up sleeping with. So yeah, it's interesting how things can change. And it was all just because of what I thought. Because initially, we got along really, really well. And then, without any words, he moved out of my life. I kind of put a wall up. Subconsciously, I was just like, I don't think this guy's as nice as I thought he was initially. And he'd be like, hey, what is it? Something's different. And I've noticed that throughout my life. I also remember when I was in high school, we had a senior campus. So from year 11 and 12, we had a different campus to the junior high school kind of thing. And what happened is that at that year, you start choosing your subjects. And I was very different to a lot of my friends who just wanted to do IT and science, that sort of thing. And I wasn't really into that sort of stuff. I was more interested in creative writing, and psychology is one of the things I chose. And I remember my first day in psychology class, I said to myself, I'm not going to be able to make friends in this class because I didn't know anyone there. And I was like, I've had these friends that I've known for such a long time. How am I going to make new friends in a new class? And for the whole year, I sat by myself, because before I even got into the classroom, I decided what was going to happen. And so I sat down by myself, and nobody really came up to talk to me, because I didn't have an open mind to say, well, you know what, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I will make friends. I'd already made the decision before I sat down. So I really feel it's like this world around us is very, very fluid. It's a lot more fluid than we realize. But we get those circumstances keep coming back to us because we have an expectation. And so it's all about adjusting our expectations and not getting too transfixed on what we think should happen. Because going back to that time in Japan, this guy that I knew was a really good friend initially, and it was just because I was open. I could have been like closed off to him from the beginning, and he would have treated me differently. He would have been very standoffish and say, oh, no, Chris doesn't seem that nice. But because when I met him, I was so open, and I was like, hey, great to meet you. It's so fantastic. We had this really good friendship that lasted for a few months. And I have other situations too where I've had situations where you'll be getting to know someone in a romantic way, and things are going well, and all of a sudden a doubt will come in your head. And I would have said something like, I don't know if this is going to work, if this is a good match. And then you can go from this really nice talk, and all of a sudden you go, ooh, there's an awkwardness here. And then the person just vanishes, or they say, oh, this isn't going to work out, or something. And it just shows you how quick things can change, especially when they're fluid relationships, but even relationships that have been around for a long, long time. They can change in a moment. They can absolutely change in a moment. So we have the tendency as human beings to think that, well, it's going to take a long time to change what I want to change. But if we can just make the decision, and this is what I learned when I was studying hypnotherapy, is that if you can just make that decision, a lot of decisions are made consciously, which means it's just a matter of your mind saying, I'm going to do this. And, when it comes to the subconscious mind is just used to doing what it's always done. And so, if you don't think about things, then your subconscious mind will just keep doing it. Like if you're like to smoke and you've always smoked, then you'll just be like, okay, well, you need cigarettes to keep you going. You need cigarettes to keep you going. But if you actually said, hang on, what are those cigarettes doing to me? And you actually thought about it, you go, oh my God, they're really killing me. Then you would go, oh, I don't need the cigarettes anymore because it makes sense to you. But a lot of times we're making decisions from the child mind which was developed when we were very young. And that's why working with hypnotherapy is really important. Anyway, when it comes to changing our own feelings about things and changing the way that we decide things and changing our life, it really just requires a decision. If we make a conscious decision, then those things honestly will change. But then what happens is, a lot of the time, is the ego mind will come in and it will say, no, you struggle with this, you struggle with this. And as Bashar always says, your old beliefs will fight for their survival, which seems amazing because it's like it has a life of its own. But basically that idea rings true, that when you try to change, you try to say something that is a belief you've held for a long time, and you get a lot of resistance. You go, oh, no, it's always been that way for you, you couldn't possibly change. And then also we start to get, what I've noticed anyways, you start to get circumstances shoving it in your face to show you that things haven't changed. Because if you want to change something that has been a lifelong belief, you know, it can be like your subconscious mind is throwing up everything it can, which means what's reflected back to you in reality, and also your thoughts, are all going to be like fighting to maintain their survival. And they're maintaining their survival in terms of trying to keep you safe, because they think, you know, your ego mind thinks, oh, but if you do that, you're going to be, you know, things are going to go badly, because you've made a decision at a certain point to protect yourself. Even if it's like, you know, it might be something like work a shitty job so that you don't have to have the pressure of a high performance job. And you might say, well, you know, you're safer in that because then you won't get criticized. And so the ego makes these really silly decisions, even if underneath it all, you actually want to be more successful. I just had to put some sunscreen on, so pardon me if I've got it all over my face, but yeah, it's really hot today. So what I wanted to say further on that is that oh God, it's so bright. The reality around you can change in an instant. I've had also times in my life where I can remember I wanted to get a different type of job, and then all of a sudden I've just applied to a couple of jobs that were not really, I didn't think much about them. And then all of a sudden I ended up getting 2 offers from 2 different companies at once. And this was to teach adults English in Australia, which I'd done overseas, obviously. And then doing it again in Australia was like, oh, that's a really interesting thing. I never thought I'd be able to do it. But it was like this really amazing opportunity that came up. And it kind of like ticked all the boxes for what I needed in my life at that point in my life. And I remember thinking, wow, isn't that incredible that I got that particular experience, which is exactly what I wanted. And it also came with some challenges that I needed to go through as well. And so it makes me realize that, you know, our life really is being guided by something, whether or not that's ourselves or our deeper awareness. But there's some part of us deep inside us that knows where we're going. And it's taking us along a path. Now it doesn't take us on a path that is going to completely blow us out of the water. It'll only take us on a path that we can handle at that time. In terms of, you know, it will read your energy and go, okay, I think you're ready for something like this. Let's have a bit of this. And if things are not changing, it's because you're continuing with those old beliefs and those old things you're holding on to. And it's not until we can let go of the reality that we have been experiencing that we can accept in a new reality. And the moment, and I've experienced this as well, the moment you can go into something, or just, let's say you just wake up in the morning and you just go, I'm ready for this, or you just go, oh wow, life is exciting, and you just have that real open moment where your mind, it feels like excited and you're just eager to go outside and see the fresh air and experience the fresh air and see the sunlight and that sort of thing. Things instantly start happening. And then you can see just how fast it can possibly happen in your life, where you could go from being nothing and nowhere, in the words of Dr. Michael Beckworth. You could be from nothing and nowhere, and then a way will be made in your life to experience exactly what it is that you want. And I've had moments like this where all these things came together in a calculated way that you could never have orchestrated yourself. And you look back on it and you go, wow, that was an incredible experience. I'm really grateful that happened. And then what happens? You try to recreate it again. It doesn't work because your ego's trying to do it. You're going, but hang on, it's got to look exactly like this. It's got to look exactly like that. But life doesn't work like that. It will change rapidly. The reality around us is not really solid. Like, we know that from looking at these quantum physics documentaries. I mean, at a layman's level. But, you know, we know from speaking or listening to those quantum physicists talking about the whole idea that there's nothing inside an atom. It's completely empty. It's just energy, and we can't even measure it. And we think, well, okay, reality's not solid. So what the hell am I experiencing? We are experiencing the fact that our beliefs are regurgitating themselves every moment. And so it's really important to just have a fresh perspective on things, and as much as we can, let go of those beliefs. And when those beliefs come up, it can be quite like frustrating, because we go, why am I believing this? And you know, you've got Byron Katie's 4 questions. She says, is it true? Do we absolutely know it's true? And I'm not sure that there's one question I forget, but the last one is basically, who would you be without that thought? And that's when we can start to go, hang on, that thought is not actually me. I thought that was just the truth. That was just the truth of reality. But the reality is that it's just an idea. And so when we can look at an idea that is kind of like governing our whole lives, we can start to go, okay, well, who would I be without that thought? So if I let that thought go, how would I be different? And then you can see yourself and you can go, oh, wow, I actually would behave completely different if I didn't believe that I was unlovable, or I didn't believe that I can't be successful, or I didn't believe that I didn't deserve love of my family, or something like that. And those beliefs can be a little bit tricky to find sometimes, because once more, the ego mind is trying to do its best job to keep those beliefs there, because they think they're keeping you safe. The ego thinks, if I don't do this, you're not going to be safe. So it wants to do it to make sure that you're being protected. Like, don't drive too fast in a car, you know, you might end up in an accident. So then you're running around dawdling all the time. But the reality is that, you know, you can trust your judgment. You don't necessarily have to believe these beliefs that other people have taught you that were their opinions. It can be, well, how about I trust my own feelings to make decisions myself? And when we start to get to that sort of thing and actually switch around the belief in ourselves and say, you know what? I am lovable, 100% lovable, no matter what I look like. I can be as successful as anyone. You know, I don't need to work hard. I don't need to, you know, like have an injury just to prove to everybody that I'm working hard enough to be successful. I can just be successful. I can get a great idea, or I can be given an opportunity that is going to pay me well. You know, so a lot of these things are beliefs that we've bought into as a society and as people. So my thought for this video is just, the reality out there is not real, and it can change in a moment. But we have to take the time to be willing to challenge our beliefs a little bit. You can use Byron Katie's 4 questions. And just remember to look at situations in your life where you have completely changed things. And I know from my own life that things have changed incredibly quickly on occasion. And when you start to get back into the ego again, you go, oh, well, things are going the way they used to, and I don't understand what's going on. That's when we have to let go. And I think this is one of the most important things that I've learned over the years, is that letting go of stuff is the most important skill that we have. And I've had to let go of a lot of things. I've had to let go of relationships, which are very painful. I've had to let go of, because I've traveled so much, you know, I've had to let go of that life, those people that I knew. And I found myself many times back at square one, and it can be very painful. But at the same time, when you're willing to let things go, your life can then rapidly change into the direction that you want. Once you're allowing yourself to have those positive beliefs, to start again and go, okay, it's going to be better this time. And that's all it requires, is just a little bit of a thought to say it will be better. Things can work out. And just from that little conscious idea, it can drip itself, or just touch like a watercolor and affect the entire subconscious, which you could consider like the let's say the water in the watercolors. So if you've got a little bit of paint on your brush and you just nudge it and say, I can do it, then the water, which is the subconscious, can spread out and completely change your life.